every single day. I'm gonna make something great.
Miss Kelly, how are you doing? Good to meet you. I'm in your home, Ansaar FM. Thank you very much for the warm reception, the hospitality. It's a beautiful setup you have here. We obviously follow from time to time when we can, but you're looking amazing.
Al-Ansar podcasts.
You're on Afternoon Jam with Fahim Jamadar.
Duduzane Zuma was born on the 20th of May 1982. He's a businessman. He's the son of former President of South Africa, Jacob Zuma, and he's the twin brother of Duduzane Zuma. He definitely needs no introduction. He is world famous, and we have the pleasure of welcoming him to the studio. Welcome, Duduzane. Welcome to Al-Ansar, and thank you for being here.
Salam, Fahim. Thank you very much for that. That was a warm, rousing introduction. I appreciate that. Best one I've had in ever.
Wow, thank you very much. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Doing good under the circumstances. Just watching the lay of the land and seeing how we move forward from this point.
Yeah. Lots of things have been happening. You've been trending. Things have been going crazy. What's been your mind space right now?
My mind space is very simple. I think we just need to band together. We need to pull together.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot that happens, just generally. Besides whatever's happening in our workplaces, in our careers, in our personal spaces, we just need to understand each other. And once we've understood each other, to move on. So my mind state has been a positive mind state amidst all the negativity, which has been unfortunate, but we remain positive.
Tell us about your political career, your upbringing.
I haven't had a political career. I'm actually new to politics. I'm a year and a bit in now.
Okay.
But the upbringing has been around politics. I was born in exile, as you'd said. And I've had the good fortune of mixing and just being in situations where there's been some interesting, credible, historic political figures that have existed locally and internationally that I've had the chance to rub shoulders with, and I think have learned. They've dropped a few gems, and I've definitely picked them up. I've learned from their teachings.
Now, what was it like to be the son of a former president? Like, is there certain responsibilities or expectations? Obviously very different from the average person.
Not necessarily. I think it's all dependent on one's attitude. I think how you approach a situation is how it's going to materialize. So from my side, whether he was a president or not, I never took it to heart.
Okay.
It's his profession, not mine. I had to carry on with what I needed to do.
Yeah.
And that's a decision I made in my life from a long time ago and up till now. I'm here to charter my own path. And that's being part of my belief system.
So tell us about your relationship with your father.
It's been a very interesting one. He's been busy for most of his life, but the time that he's been around, we've managed to build on it, and I think it's happened mainly towards the elderly side of his life. I think he's especially after his stepping down, there's been time to catch up with him, and you get to understand things as you grow up. As when you're younger, things don't make sense, but as you grow and you look at stuff retrospectively and how it impacted you and how you move forward, and even in discussions, it's been positive. So it's been a better, let's call it, from my side, I can only speak for myself, a better part of my adult part of my life. I've learned to understand him, and I actually have learned to appreciate him a whole lot more.
Now, when you walked in, you said, listen, we can, ask our listeners to ask you any questions. You are okay with answering any questions. So that was done. Nothing is planned, nothing is prepped. So if you have any questions, you can send us a message right now on 060 904 1056. But what I think everybody has been waiting for, whoever has been listening, loot responsibly. That's, the whole thing. Can we unpack this whole thing where, you said loot responsibly. You said it was a 7-second clip taken out of context. Just talk to us about that.
Let's talk through it. And I think, firstly, if we look at the chronology of the events that happened, and I think a lot of people have misconceptions about it, and I'd like to clear that up, and I thank you for giving me that opportunity. is firstly, there's a Twitter account, and I'll get to the video. I just want to paint the picture.
Yeah.
There's a Twitter account out there that's purported to be mine, and it's definitely not. I've responded to that allegation numerous times, myself, to different media outlets, print, podcasts, radio stations,
Right.
TV interviews. My lawyers have put out statements. I've denied having that involvement in that account, and to a point where there's an online publication last year, let's call it March or April. They instituted their own investigation into that account, username, IP address, and they narrowed it down to an individual, which they've got their name and they printed it, so it's out there in the public domain.
Okay.
And it was clearly not me. So that's a Twitter account. So anything that has been anything that's been communicated via that account, I cannot be expected to take responsibility because it's not my account, and I have not said anything inflammatory via that platform. And I do not form any part of any social media platforms, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, WeChat, you name it.
Right.
I don't exist on those platforms.
Yeah.
And then secondly, it's the videos that have been taken out of context, unfortunately. And to my recollection, there are two videos. I'll get to the the 7-second one. The first one is
Reset.
yes, correct.
Rebuild, redistribute.
So that was also, once again, part of a smaller clip, and I actually shot that video. I was in Abu Dhabi, funny enough, earlier this year.
Okay.
And that was in response to requests that were made to me by certain students who happen to be black students in South Africa. And they'd asked me to just say one or two things, and I did say it. And the messaging around that was basically where we're at as black people
Right.
in the country. I mean, the journeys that they're going through are journeys that I've gone through.
Okay.
And I've said, guys, part of the messaging is, and this is what I speak about whenever I get the opportunity to, is we need to understand that if we don't take ourselves seriously, nobody else will.
Right.
You need to change your mindset, and this is how we got to the reset, redistributing, and rebuilding. Resetting is just understanding that we may have, and making concessions. We may have made some mistakes, and how do we move from that point onwards? Resetting the way we think, the way we engage each other
All right.
within ourselves as a black community and the broader population, locally and internationally. Redistribute, people just think it's a land issue, and that's not what I was talking about, actually.
All right.
Now, the redistribution is just just from a spiritual perspective, energies, thought process, and just how we can be a part of the economic system, and how that wealth within the economic system should be and will be redistributed according to how we actively participate in that space. And then the rebuilding is purely on what needs to be done, just besides infrastructure, but everything from the education system to policing to the military to everything else that needs a relook.
So how is it that video, that message, got misconstrued with the current unrest?
Cool. So the 7-second one, which I'm getting to, and
Yeah.
that's the 7-second video was shot on day 4, maybe 5
Okay.
of the unrest. So it was definitely not the beginnings of anything. And the reason I shot that video was to try and deal with the situation at that time, because I'd seen my name in various media platforms and social media, and these accusations that were labeled against me. And I'd shot that video on let's call it day 4, to address the issues. And the themes in that video are: one, a categorical denial of what was happening. Secondly, to denounce the violence and everything else, the vandalism, destruction to property, and that caused the unrest. And then the third point, as I got to that 7 seconds, was the preceding point was speaking about armed groupings, which are community members defending their properties,
Right.
their homes, their families. And the point I was getting to was, as much as you have the right to do so, as a matter of fact, I did so. I was in Newlands East. I was part of the policing, or the community policing, and the forums that were set up to quote unquote defend
Right.
amenities that are there for the public. There's a certain ShopRite on the Parlock side, which borders Newlands West, Newlands East, and parts of Komashu.
Right.
I did my day and night shifts whenever I could. So I formed part of trying to be part of a defense system that was put into place, because it was unfortunate what was happening. So I was detailing the people that are defending what is dear to them and their right to do so, which I did as well. And I can never, go against that will. But I'd also said that they need to do it responsibly, speaking about people defending what is theirs. And then similarly, I said to people protesting, where there's people looting and that sort of stuff, because the unfortunate thing is we get to a point where whenever anything happens negative, when it comes to the population especially that are living under the breadline, in dire straits and poverty, we always create an us and a them situation. So all I was saying, or the point I was trying to make at least, is we should be careful how we label people. As much as there were elements of criminality, and looting by definition is stealing food and water for survival because of desperate needs.
Well, what about people who are looting fridges, TVs, and not food and
no,
water?
Of course, that is unwarranted, and that's an unfortunate, and it's something that shouldn't be condoned, and I denounced it.
Wouldn't it have been better to say, do not loot, as opposed to loot responsibly?
No, so what I'm saying is we're in a situation now, and if we look what's happening, let's boil it down to Phoenix, because that's a talking point.
Yeah.
They are dead people, correct?
Okay.
And these people are looters, as we'd say, right? How do we deal with that situation where we have a position where people have been shot and killed because they are looting, stealing whatever it was that they're stealing? And the point I'm trying to make is we need to get an understanding of the plight of people that are doing what they did.
Right.
And that's the point I was trying to come from. Guys, let's not point it in a different direction. This was day 5. I was trying to make a point, and I'm still trying to make that point. And I'm very surprised it's not being understood, because now you have death and destruction. And now all of a sudden, people that have been shot who were looters, no one's got answers. And that's where I'm coming from.
And somehow now it's changed, it's become a racial issue, where it actually it's not a racial issue at all. Message comes through and says, do you appreciate what Indians have done in South Africa, and do you feel Indians should go back to India? Because we are South Africans. If we go to India, people ask us, who are you? We say we are South Africans. We're not Indians. We're foreign to India.
Sure.
So what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are simple. Firstly, India is a very beautiful place. I've traveled and I've lived there. Beautiful place. And Pakistan as well.
You believe you studied in Pakistan?
Yeah. I lived there for a year, so I'm very familiar with that part of the world.
Okay.
And what I'd say to people that are feeling anxious about the situation is I fully agree. There is nowhere else to go for Indian, black, white, whoever it is, majority, minority groupings. We've got a beautiful country. It's here for us to protect, and it's here for us to build. So as much as things may have gone the way they did, and there's racial tensions that have flared up due to that, I think what we need to understand is it's not a moment in history. It's not an event that is something that happened because of a specific incident. I think issues of racism exist in this country and have been in existence for a very long time. And I always use the example of, because we only can learn from our history, and looking back in hindsight.
Yeah.
Is we've had similar issues in the early 90s, I think 93. We've had a similar issue which was in 85. And we cannot forget that those issues have been in existence. So we cannot boil it down to this point and say, all of a sudden we find ourselves breaking down racially speaking because of whatever issues. The issues of poverty are real. The issues of race are real. And unfortunately, the positive is a lot of people came together and did what humanitarian basis of being people who live and coexist within a community should be. Defended what they needed to defend, and afterwards, even just the cleaning up process and just trying to understand everything. Everyone came together, and that's what it's about. But on the other side, we need to understand that issues of race have not developed in the past 2 years, past 2 weeks, or 2 months.
Right.
It's historic. It's been in the past, let's call it 100 years if you want to take it that far back. And we need to understand that it's a real issue, and we need to start dealing with the real issues, and we need to stop pointing fingers and trying to make excuses for stuff that are there. Let's have those tough discussions, and let's understand each other, and let's work together. And we need to stop the lip service. And even when it comes to the politics sides of things, there's a lot of division that's out there. There's a lot of negative, divisive rhetoric that is out there. And I'm trying to be part of a movement moving forward, a part of a solution to say, look, we can deal with these issues. We understand each other. I definitely understand the lay of the land when it comes to racial, to traditional, to even cultural and religious practices. And that's why I'm putting myself at the forefront and not making excuses. So I definitely believe that the race issue is a real issue. But we've been living in these communities together for a long time. And it's unfortunate what happened, but we need to deal with it. We can't talk about it. We can't shy away from it. And I believe that's what a lot of people are doing. They're trying to ignore the issue and trying to paint it in a different light instead of dealing with the issue head on.
Exactly what you're saying. If you just joined us, it's Radio Al-Ansar 90.4 FM. We are speaking to Duduzane Zuma. He's live with us in studio. A message comes through from Nasima Muhammad, who says, Salam's beautiful afternoon jam team. I'd like to welcome Mr. Duduzane Zuma to our airwaves. Having listened to him on other radio stations, I must admit that my initial anger towards him has somewhat dissipated. I think it's encouraging that he would take it upon himself to amend and put right his so-called actions that could have been inflammatory. He's an extremely intelligent person, and I feel that moving forward, he could bring about changes to repair any damages further. How does he intend contributing to making our beautiful country better? Love and warm regards, Nasima Muhammad.
Salams to Ms. Muhammad. Thank you very much for the positive comments. And I think the first thing that we need to do is to acknowledge. I think acknowledgement is the first step in getting to a point where we resolve issues in this country. And acknowledgement is not just of self, but acknowledgement of what the situations are for the reality that we are faced with. And I think, once again, it leads back to what I was saying earlier on. A lot of us are running away from the real issues instead of dealing with them. So that's the first point, acknowledgement. Secondly, I think there's been a complete despondency to politics in this country. And I think getting involved in the political playing field. And that doesn't mean now everyone is going to try and be a councillor and a mayor and a minister, whatever it is. But just political activity, political awareness, and just activism generally. Because what happens is people are completely aloof, and it creates a certain level of ignorance when it comes to politics. And that's not the way we should approach it. We should be able to get to a point where we all understand it. So when we have discussions, we can engage it with a positive mindset from a point of understanding. The example I always make is you have South Africa, which has gone from the politics of, in 94, the politics of liberation, so the freedom fighting thing and that sort of thing, to the politics of race, where, if you're black, you vote a black party. If you're white, you vote a white party. If you're Indian, you vote an Indian party, or, whichever way you decide to split that vote.
Yeah. And
we've unfortunately gotten to a point where we find ourselves in the middle of the politics of class. And I think this is what's playing out in our ecosystem, political ecosystem. And it's difficult to come up with answers because we are not dealing with the real issues. So the political involvement and the journey that I'm speaking about and getting involved in politics is not because I'm trying to be a superhero. I don't have an S on my chest. But what I'm saying is I don't see anyone else getting involved. It's high risk. We understand it. It's high stakes. And I've been living out of the country for the past 5 years for other reasons, and those reasons being that my bank accounts were closed off in 2015. So I do not exist in December 2015. I don't exist economically or financially in South Africa. That's why I left, not because I was running away from anything. And I came back to face the accusations and the music, but today I still find myself in that position. But the reason I mention that is we all have to play our role. We all have to put our shoulders shoulder to the wheel and be a part of these discussions and, more importantly, action. So we want to walk away from politically and the way forward, to walk away from being those people that speak every time you take a podium or a stage. It's the same old political rhetoric. We want to be active. We want to do. We want to engage these opportunities to be game changers actively, and it's going to be done from a point of not just initiating, but from implementation. And I think when it comes to policy, that's the main aim, because there's certain rules and regulations that exist that are making it difficult for a lot of people to be a part of the action in South Africa, more especially the economic action. I mean, we look at the high levels of unemployment. We look at issues of how our system is set up, the deracialization of the economy as well. So everyone gets a fair shake of the dice.
Now, you believe that South Africa should have an embassy in Israel because by pulling it away, it's actually picking a side. Earlier this year, President Cyril Ramaphosa called Israel an apartheid-like state, and this has been the view of most South Africans as well as the ANC. And we as South Africans know very well that we could not fight against apartheid without the support of the countries, other countries around the world, and all who stood up against the apartheid regime. Don't you think that by the South African government revoking its embassy in Israel is actually standing against Israel?
So this is the way I look at it, and I think there's some comments that were once again misconstrued from some interview that I did last week, and I'm being labelled a disgrace, I'm being labelled sellout, whatever it is, and people are speaking in all sorts of disrespectful tones. But the fact of the matter is, I did not show any support for, as a matter of fact, for anybody.
Okay.
What I showed support for is the peace process.
Right.
And people like saying now, but you're taking middle ground, and you are chickening out from
what you said initially.
From supporting. From supporting.
Okay.
No. What I said, I stand by.
Right.
And the reason for that is, and if we talk about what conflict resolution is, the first part of resolving issues, whether it be family, whether it be political, business, judicial, is engagement. You need to talk about these things.
Right.
And granted, this issue between Israel and Palestine has been going on for the past, almost 60 years. And people have tried. We've seen the different accords that have come into play, and they failed last minute. There've been people that have pulled out, whatever it is. But, if we do not have active engagement, we're not going to get to a point where we're dealing with issues that can be resolved peacefully, in my view. And if I may just make this point, the withdrawal of the embassy in Israel by the South African government, and we've seen the ANC policy on that matter. And my comments, and it's not an opinion, it's a position that I take,
right,
purely from conflict resolution. If you look at what's happened in South Africa, if we want to talk about apartheid states, let's talk about apartheid states. South Africa was an apartheid state, if we remember very well. What did the ANC do? What did the ANC, they weren't government at the time, but the ANC engaged.
Okay.
They didn't say, as much as people were supporting from anywhere else, and we respect and we appreciate the support that the ANC would have gotten, even from Palestine at that point. That's I'm not shining any negative light on anybody, but I'm saying it's a hypocritical view for some people to take, and the ANC for sure, because the way you dealt with your situation, dealing with the apartheid government, you negotiated. As a matter of fact, people say you got the wrong end. You made bigger concessions with the apartheid negotiations at that time, with the Codesa discussions. All of a sudden, you're talking about withdrawing embassies. And all I'm saying is, let's stick to the principle. And the principle is, if we're going to get to a peaceful resolution, let's engage. That's what the ANC did. And now they're saying something else. That's up for debate.
I hear what you're saying, but let's just hold the thought. We have to break for our Maghrib Salah, Maghrib prayer, Azan and Salah, and we will continue our discussion with Duduzane Zuma after Maghrib Salah, inshallah. This is Radio Al-Ansar, it's 90.4 FM. If you just joined us, we are talking to Duduzane Zuma live in studio. Stay with us.
So blue upon my eyes with a thankful heart. Today is another brand new start. I feel so positive. Just wanna do my best to show this world I'm living in all of the love.
It's Radio Al-Ansar 90.4 FM, the afternoon jam. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for tuning in. And thank you for listening to us. And also thank you to Duduzane Zuma, who's with us in studio, talking to us. Pretty cool, pretty chilled. He's willing to answer any questions. He doesn't even want to know what the questions are beforehand. He's like, ask me whatever you want to ask me. It's all good. I'm here to answer questions. Message says, my comment is regarding foreigners in South Africa. They are hardworking and been here quite a while. Isn't it better to formalize their presence? They can contribute a lot and are highly skilled. And maybe if registered, they can also create jobs, be taxpayers, and contribute to the economy.
Thank you very much. You didn't mention the name.
There's no name mentioned.
Okay, cool. But thank you very much for that question, wherever you are out there in the world. I think what we can't run away from is that we do have some issues with our border control. And firstly, that needs to be sorted out and tightened. Because I think if we try and work in reverse, it creates a problem further down the line. We have a lot of issues to fix in the country, and we'll get to that and we'll fix them. But we need to understand the root cause of these problems so we can deal with it, and to stem whatever illegal influx coming into the country. So there's a political saying that goes, the collective intelligence of a people is greater than that of its leadership. And that statement rings true for whatever happens in our society. And basically that means whatever decisions are taken by society, it's done collectively. And you don't have to be sitting around the same table for it to happen. In whether you're a professional, a business person, a traveler, whatever it is that you do, there's certain elements that are put into discussion form, and it averages out. So that collective intelligence is what guides our society. And anything such as, and I'm linking this to xenophobia, for example,
Right.
and issues of attacks on foreigners, is basically society saying, guys, we have a problem, and it's done once again in the wrong way. You shouldn't be attacking foreigners. That's not the way to do things, regardless of where they're from. These issues need to be engaged and dealt with. But now people have different ways of responding to issues. So as much as we don't condone violent acts, we need to understand that there is a border control issue. And why I'm mentioning that is our people are basically saying our foreign policy needs to be checked. That's basically the collective intelligence of a people. So once we resolve and stem the issues of people coming in illegally, then I think we're in a better place to start talking about formalizing foreigners in the country and putting them onto our system, which can and will happen. I do believe that it should happen, but it can only happen at a point where we've shored up our systems. Our Home Affairs departments need to be in order. I mean, for example, our Home Affairs department, it's something that needs a lot of work for South African population. Let's sort out our systems first. Let's get them up to standard. Let's integrate them, and once that is done, it's easier to have a conversation of integrating people into our country and getting them onto the system.
A message says, racism is not the issue. It's the people in charge of the country and his people down. We Muslims do a lot to help the poor. The peeps are gone poor because they robbed houses, etc. Don't get angry. I don't understand that message.
No, but let me comment. I understand it very clearly.
Okay.
And I think the person that I'm not sure, there's no name, but what we need to do is to stop pointing fingers. And I always say this, we can't leave everything in government's hands. Us as a society need to take responsibility, because it's as much our fault as people, yourself, myself, everybody, as it is much the government's fault. And we've seen what has happened now. Racism, you can't run away from it. It is a real issue, and it's not a new issue. The basis of this country and how it's existed and where we're coming from in its history, based on racial issues. If you look at the way the communities are set up, what has become coexistence, fortunately, and with its own issues at the moment, but the way the town planning was done, where black people have been made to live, where Indian people have been made to live, where colored people have been made to live, where white people have been made to live, that was done deliberately. There's an architecture and a systematic approach that was done, and that is the issue. That coupled with the I don't want to call it a caste system, but the preference of race in the country, where you had white, colored, Indian, black, as preference of being either first, second, third, or fourth grade citizens. That has played a major role. Now, what we are seeing is the remnants of all those issues coming to coalescing at this moment in history. So we can't run away from that issue. And I think the listener that messaged that question needs to really introspect and understand that, we cannot, and that goes for any of us, we cannot keep blaming government for certain issues. Have they made mistakes? Of course they've made mistakes. Are there shortcomings? Of course there are shortcomings. But we need to take responsibility as a society, because if we're not willing to take that responsibility and act positively, group together so we can force government's hand to do the right thing, we're not going to get anywhere. And that's why I'm saying everyone needs to get involved.
Now, it's been said that, where you said South Africa should have an embassy in Israel and the ANC should take a completely different stance. What's been said that these statements are disgraceful comments, supporting apartheid Israel, And this was said in an interview with the SA right-wing newspaper, the SA Jewish Report. And there were claims that you've grown up very close to Jews in Mozambique. You have a Jewish uncle, and you even credit an Israeli as being an elder of yours. You are also the father of a Jewish son. Can you clear up those statements? This is concerns from the Muslim community, from the board of Al-Ansar, the chairman Ashfaq Dawood, and everyone who's listening. Can you clear up those statements?
Okay, so I'll start off with the embassy. I think I've touched upon that, and that speaks about resolving the issue with positive engagement. I think I've cleared that up, but just to summarize, conflict resolution does not happen without engagement. And when it comes to the ANC and the stance they've taken, yes, I've said it in the interview, I'm saying it now, and I've said it earlier in this interview as well, the newspaper interview, that I stand by that. That's the position that I take when it comes to a principled approach to dealing with issues. That doesn't mean I've chosen a side. I never have done that. So the reflection of me being supportive to apartheid Israel, as I've been alleged to do so, is completely not true. And if people actually read the article in its entirety, they'll understand exactly where I was coming from, and not to take certain bits and pieces and paint a picture like I'm being anti-Palestinian, because that's not the case. Secondly, when it comes to the question that you'd raised on my interactions, my relations with the Jewish community, having a son, having someone that I respect, I don't see what the problem is with that. There's people from different communities that I've grown up with that I respect, not just the Jewish community, from the Muslim community as well, from the Indian Hindu community. It's no secret. I've had business that I've done for the better part of my life has been with Indian business people. I've lived in Islamic countries under full Sharia law and complying to that. So I'm fully aware of it. I'm sensitive to that matter. So it's not like I'm just speaking out of thin air. I understand these issues. I've lived there. Some people haven't lived there who've been in this country. They may have visited but haven't lived there. So for people to question my relations with whoever it is, that's unfortunate. It's completely unfair. That doesn't take away from who I am. My relations, the people that I have in my life are the people that I have in my life for a reason. And we learn from people. Elders come in different shapes and forms and colors, and this is one of those cases. So if people are trying to insinuate that I have a preference purely based on those relations, that's not the case. That's been part of my history. I've been taught to live with different people from different parts of the world and from different backgrounds, and that's exactly what I do.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for clearing your stance, on that. Many messages through. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. Message says, good afternoon to Duduzane. Firstly, thank you for your time this evening. I'd like to know what's your stance on the current unrest staged by the Free Zuma campaign. How do you think government can resolve this issue going forward?
Right, so I'll stick to my guns on that one. So if I've been asked that question and I've responded
yes.
Responded twofold. Because when we're trying to deal with the situation, we need to understand what the situation is. Now, if I may take it back to the origins of it, there's a gentleman named Jacob Zuma, who happens to be my father, who's currently in prison. And I've always said, and I believe that the way he's been treated by the judicial processes, and I speak for myself, and then I add myself to that list, has been unfair in some cases. As much as people want to talk about constitutionality, we also have our constitutional rights. And the second thing people do is they term his the way he defends himself from a legal perspective. He takes the Stalingradist approach where he seemed to play for time and blah, blah, blah. And from my side, I've dealt with my legal issues head on. I've traveled back, I've faced the music, and till today, I'm having this conversation with you. I'm not in an orange suit. I'm not in a prison cell purely because I've done nothing wrong. And this is what I tell to people. If you want to believe that I'm guilty, I can't change your mind. But I'm innocent, and the burden of proof is on the accuser, as they say. And till this day, no one's been able to prove anything, and they will not be able to. And even when it comes to the unrest, that's the case. They've got long lists of people that they're going to arrest. They're not going to do so. Whatever investigations they need to do is already out in the public, as I'd mentioned. So there's not much work that they need to do. So I'm not involved, and I stand by that position, and no one is going to prove me otherwise. The unrest has been unfortunate. It's been it's come at a terrible time in our country. We're trying to rebuild. We're in the middle of a lockdown, and it's something that we all need to learn from. There's these issues that exist, and they've been highlighted, spotlighted, and microscoped, and that's something that we need to realize that these are the issues we need to deal with: racism, poverty, etc. And the final point I want to make in response to that question is, I always pose this question when it comes to the origins of the so-called unrest being the arrest of Jacob Zuma. The question I pose is, if he was arrested and we were not in a period of lockdown in this country, do you think that the protests would have spiraled out of control into complete unrest? And my response to that is most definitely not. We need to remember that South Africa has been in a lockdown pretty much indefinitely since March last year. They've tried, alleviating it from time to time, and they speak about the increasing rates. And another point that I'd like to raise is, how do we find ourselves during an unrest period, of the period of the unfortunate destruction? How do we find ourselves? We are in wave 3, we're in strain 4, and we've been taken a notch down from level 4 to level 3, when we've had inactivity of the vaccine program during the unrest. How do we, within this period of everything that's happened, institute less harsh lockdown protocols? That doesn't make sense to me. And the point I'm trying to make is the COVID the lockdown protocols have been a part of the issue. So, in response to that, and my final part of the answer is, two of the issues that stand on the table for the supposed unrest is, one, Jacob Zuma's arrest, and two, a lockdown. And over a year ago I spoke about it, and I came under pressure a year ago, and I said, lockdown in South Africa will have one opportunity. That first phase, whether it's 2 weeks, 2 months, a year, after that it's not going to work, because the socioeconomic conditions that exist in our country cannot and does not allow people to sit at home.
So should we then be concerned with current threats of a second wave of violence?
Now, look, from my side, if you look at the first wave, there's certain messaging that's gone out, and it's caused levels of anxiety, high levels of anxiety, and correctly so. Some of the messaging that's been put out, whether it's voice notes, whether it is misconstrued video clips and that sort of thing that creates a certain picture. We're seeing voice notes now, once again, that are making the rounds on the potential second wave for whatever reason. We need to get to a point in society where we need to verify this information. Unfortunately, we've had a situation where there's been our law enforcement agencies and security cluster that haven't been able to deal with the issue decisively. So we still need to get to a point where that is resolved, so we don't have to do that job. But as society, we need to understand what information is real and what is not. We can't take everything at face value as something real, because now it creates issues that get people to a point where they panic, and we see the responses that are unfavorable to society. So the threats of a second wave of violence are unfortunate, and the people that are placing these threats out there and trying to create a situation should be found, and they should be held liable. They should be, whoever it is, it doesn't matter who it is. The tools and mechanisms are in place. It's not a difficult thing to get to these people, and they need to be, if they're found wanting, they need to do jail time. Simple as that.
Well, Duduzane Zuma, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for, okay.
No, I'm saying, no, sorry for interrupting you. But thank you very much, Fahim Bhai, and to...
You sound like a Pakistani now. Fahim Bhai. Duduzane Zuma is calling me Fahim Bhai. Yeah, proper Pakistani.
100%. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah.
And to the listeners out there, it's been an unfortunate period. There's been a lot of misconceptions and misinformation, and I cannot be held liable for what has happened, but what I can be held liable for is how we move forward and how I'm going to be part of the progression.
Right.
Just because you don't see us in the foreground doesn't mean we're not active. We're doing what we need to do. And to the Indian community and the Muslim community specifically, and I've been having these discussions with some very good friends of mine, is the work that is done. And I know it goes against religious teachings. It's now time to highlight that work. It's not to take credit, but people need to understand that we have been working together for a very long time. If you look at people that have been alleviating some of the issues when it comes to the hunger in the past few weeks, and more specifically in the past many years, it's been, and I've been on many drives, and what I find quite interesting is the people that are always part of initiatives that are there from an NGO basis are Muslim people. That's just the truth. I've been on many drives where we've done stuff, and you guys come to the party at all times. We appreciate it, we respect it, and we're looking forward to showcase it so the world can see that this is how it's done, and the wrong message needs to stop being put out there.
Well, thank you very much for that acknowledgement. And thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for being here at Al Ansar, visiting us and spending your time and setting the record straight and clearing your issues out.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity, and I appreciate you, sir.
Absolute pleasure having you. Hopefully we shall talk to you again very soon.
Most definitely. If I'm welcome back here, I'll definitely be back anytime. Yeah.
Maybe you can do a show with me, co-host a show or something like that.
Yeah, no, most definitely.
Try your thing at radio.
We'll call the show.
Try your thing at radio.
Yeah, no, we can do it. Just point me out, and I got you.
Don't worry, we'll teach you that. Okay, that's Duduzane Zuma here on the Afternoon Jam. That's it for the show today. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for joining us. We'll talk to you again tomorrow, same time, same place, right here on Radio Al Ansar between 4 and 6 o'clock. From me, for him, and my team, that's Kelly and Abdul. We say, well, thank you very much to our brothers who've made this possible. But from me, for him, and Kelly and Abdul, we say no to drugs, respect your parents, and be the best you can be. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
The Afternoon Jam is brought to you by Sovereign Foods, full of goodness.
Radio Al Ansar podcasts.
Here with us today. Thank you so much for
Thank you very
the
much,
opportunity.
Thank you very much for having me.
Right, I would just like to ask you 2 questions without wasting much of your time. Right. I first of all, I'd like to congratulate you on your run for presidency and to wish you all the very best. But with the Zuma reputation and the alleged, corruption, how confident are you that you do stand a chance?
Right, so I'm very confident. I think there are 2 segments to your question. One is Zuma being my father, and then Zuma being myself. And the position I found myself in, people say, no, this is a legacy project. This is just going to be a continuation. And my view is very simple. If you look at what I'm saying, the messaging that I've put out, it may not be over a long period of time because I'm new to this field, the political field, should I say. But I'm very clear. And I'm doing things the way I want to do them.